get started. This time we'll have the swear in, Beth.
Okay, Mr. McGrady, be sworn by placing your left hand on the Bible there in front of you and raising your right. Calvin McGrady, do you solemnly swear that you will support, maintain the Constitution and laws of the United States and the Constitution and laws of North Carolina, not inconsistent therewith, and that you will faithfully discharge the duties of the office of the Winston-Salem, Forsyth County Utility Commission, so help you God?
I do.
Calvin McGrady, do you solemnly and sincerely swear that you will support the Constitution of the United States, that you will be faithful and bear true allegiance to the state of North Carolina and to the constitutional powers and authorities which are or may be established for the government thereof, and that you will endeavor to support, maintain, and to defend the Constitution of said state, not inconsistent with the Constitution of the United States, to the best of your knowledge and ability, so help you God?
I do.
Calvin McGrady, do you solemnly swear that you will well and truly execute the duties of the office of the Winston-Salem Forsyth County Utility Commission according to the best of your skill and ability, according to law, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you. Sign right here.
Absolutely.
Very good. Very good. So what I'd like to do before I actually started, Calvin, you want to say just a little bit about your background, who you are? Certainly welcome.
Sure. I've gotten to chat with a few of you during lunch. I've met some of you all during professional endeavors. So, but it's great to be here in this capacity. Grew up in Charlotte. After grad school, moved to DC, was there for about 10 years with my family. Came here to be the VP of Public Policy for Greater Winston-Salem, Inc. And also own a small consulting firm. We do finance, healthcare, green energy, and things of that nature. Really enjoy being here in Winston. My family's thrived and enjoyed the community. So I'm glad to help serve and work with you all. You've done such great work already. And so I'm just happy to be here to learn and assist what I can.
Good. Welcome aboard, Calvin.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. All right. At this moment, I'll call to order the December the 12th, 2022 meeting for the Winston-Salem Forsyth County Utilities Commission. And at this time, I guess I'll turn it over to Courtney. We do have some guest speakers today that have with us.
Mr. Chair, we need to do roll call.
Oh, roll call. We go online. I'm sorry. Roll call.
Thank you.
Chair Wesley Curtis,
Present.
Vice Chair Chris Parker,
Present.
Commissioner Simpson Brown,
Here.
Commissioner Harold Eustache, Commissioner Tom Griffin,
Present.
Commissioner Yvonne Hines,
Here.
Commissioner Hugh Jernigan,
Present.
Commissioner Dwayne Long,
Here.
Commissioner Calvin McRae,
Here.
Commissioner Charles Wilson,
Present.
Commissioner Alan Younger.
Thanks, Beth. Thanks for reminding me. One day I'll get it. So now we do have some visitors with us, and we have a couple of presentations, which I think a couple of commissioners has sort of asked for. I think it's good for us to stay ahead of what's out there as we're thinking about the facilities and the things that we're providing to see what's around us. And so we've got some great presentations that will talk about solid waste, which I think is great. So at this time, I'll go ahead and turn it over to Courtney to kind of introduce those and start those presentations.
I have a couple of announcements that I'll go over first, and then I'll turn it over to our guests. But let me share my screen. Let me make sure I pick the right one. Okay. It's hard to do it on the. Okay. You tell me if it's not right, Gail. She's making sure my streaming's right. Okay, so again, welcome and announcements, and then we will hear from our guest speakers about landfill gas agreement, renewing that. There's a proposal for that. Then Jeremy O'Brien's here to talk about trends in the solid waste management area, and then we'll go over our agenda items. And I have a few things to discuss at the end of the meeting. I can update you on the sanitary sewer overflow that we had back in August that was in the paper again last week, if we have time. And then also there's the water, sewer, and solid waste balance sheets that I sent out last night, and Kelly's here to answer any questions if we have time to get to it. We got a full agenda. So just an update, we're currently at 83 departmental vacancies. So we're still really high. That's a little over 20% of our budgeted positions. We are really making a lot of effort in recruitment events. So we've done the Goodwill CDL class, Forsyth Tech Career Fair, NC Works program. We're Patrice, she's back here in the back, is partnering with HR to really try to hit those events and get some people in here. Fire hydrants. I know there's been some discussion in the past about fire hydrants and our backlog and out of service hydrants. At the beginning of September, we had a list of about 200 hydrants to replace. As of November 30th, we have 110 left on our list. Our contractor is replacing about 30 hydrants a month. And of course, we keep adding more hydrants to our list. So as we knock some off the list, we have some more added, but we feel like we'll be caught up in about 5 months. But we're trying our best to stay on top of that. We're looking at, this rate of replacement, seeing if we need to up those efforts. I know we did up those efforts with Ramey, and we're making a little bit faster progress. Mr. Griffin.
A question. Do we look at the logistics in terms of if there are 2 or 3 in a real close area that are out, and go ahead and bump those up in line and move those? Is that?
I'm looking at Kenny.
That's correct. So we also prioritize those. So the tech that goes and investigates the problem, whether it's involved in a vehicle accident, they'll look at the surrounding hydrants, and if they need to be moved up on the list, we'll contact.
So what is our goal as far as trying to get a hydrant replaced when it goes out from a time frame standpoint? What are we shooting for?
I don't, well, of course, as quickly as possible. If it's a priority, what we would say a high priority, if our contractor won't get it, we'll try to get it within 2 weeks. When I say we, utilities field operations, but normally within a month, once we get it on the list, but it takes a little while for us to investigate. If the hydrant needs to be fully replaced, can it be just a collision kit put on it? What year was the hydrant installed, and if there's any kind of shutdown involved with it, those can delay the replacement. If the hydrant valve is not operating or not sealing correctly, we may have to shut down a small area. In some places, it's hard to.
So you're saying a month?
I think, and we, the problem was we had such a huge backlog, and so we're trying to get those out of the way, and then hopefully if we can maintain a smaller backlog, then we can get to those faster, as you mentioned. So.
Well, but we do investigate it within. We try to get there within 2 days, but we're usually there within a day to set that up, to set the work order up.
After being reported.
Mm-hmm.
That's correct.
Those fire departments color code by the pressure to that hydrant, I think.
Some do that.
You don't think that?
We do not. The fire department.
Okay, next thing on the list I wanted to update you on is Hendersonville, the city of Hendersonville and Henderson County are interested in a joint governance of their water and sewer system, similar to what we have here with Winston-Salem and Forsyth County. So a few weeks ago, staff from Hendersonville and Henderson County, so their managers and some of their elected officials, the county commissioners and the city council, came and visited us. Mr. Curtis and Mr. Griffin came as representatives from the Utility Commission, and then Aaron was in the meeting, as well as Lee Garrity, our city manager. But they just wanted to hear about how we were formed and how we're set up, and what works well and what maybe are things that we do differently. They've asked for copies of our agreements, and they also met with Forsyth County management as well. So the county manager and I don't know, I think it was Don Martin, their county commissioner, and I can't remember. Yeah, Commissioner Linville. So anyway, it was a really good discussion. I think it's something that here with Winston-Salem Forsyth County is something that we can be proud of, how we're set up, and we can be a role models for other systems to mimic. So
Are there any other counties in the state that do this like we do?
not that I know of, I don't.
And I told, I think out of the meeting that we had, the main thing that I got out of that meeting was, Tom, he needs to write a book. Because I mean, really, the reality, because how the process that they went through, what they experienced, the headaches from these various entities, he's the one that was there in the background pushing and making those things work. So that information was really valuable to the group to talk about, hey, what's to watch out for, and let me tell you, here's the problem we had with that. And so, and he still won't write the book.
Well, I had no idea you had such responsibility when you were in elementary school. You must have been that young.
Pretty element.
But and you're right that he brings a lot of history. Obviously, he was involved with a lot of the negotiations of the when the merger happened, and so it was good to have him involved. But
It wasn't smooth.
that's right. But it was well worth it. It was well worth it. I think we have a really good system set up here. And then I really just want to take a few minutes to talk about our department's Christmas parties, and then I obviously have to talk about retirements. But just so you know, we try to have parties, make it fun for our employees. We have not had a big utility-wide Christmas party since before COVID, and we're going to take one more year off of doing that. But our individual divisions have Christmas parties with their staff to celebrate them in the holiday season. And we also have 6 retirements at the end of this year. Marcus Felton is one of our retirees. He's retiring at the end of December. I guess January 1st is the first official retirement date. Yeah. And then also, many of you know Frank Crump, who's our wastewater treatment superintendent. He's retiring as well. So Frank has 35 years with the city of Winston-Salem, and obviously it's going to be big shoes to fill with him. But we have, I don't have the list, Bruce Casey, who's with the drying facility. Another operator at Elledge. Ron McGinnis, that's the, yeah, thank you. Thank you. So, yeah, 'tis the season of retirements too.
The good thing about that is that they've got persons that are just backed up that's really kind of fill in those positions, so they have the knowledge, so we're not like out.
Yes. Mr. Curtis did ask me about that, and I do feel good about where we're at. And we have really good we have a lot of good employees and a good team. And so we've got people that can step up and take on those additional responsibilities. So I'm excited for them. Just a little bit of some events that we've hosted since we last met in October 15th. We had a booth or table at the International Village. I love that picture. I think it's so pretty. And then we had an event out at Liberty Street Market on October 22nd. We had the Positive Path of Winston-Salem do a tour at our Swan Water Treatment Plant. And that was in October as well. And this is the career development for at-risk 16 to 24-year-olds. And then we participated in a turkey fry event to talk about the safety of, before Thanksgiving. And what our message, of course, was to can the grease. Obviously, don't put the grease down the drain. So we were part of that event as well. And then the last event, we had our camera truck, the CCTV truck in the holiday parade on December 3rd. So a lot of good kind of marketing, getting our message out there to the community. And with that, I'm gonna turn it over to Jan and let her introduce our
speakers for today. Okay, I just want to briefly give you a little bit of background on what they're going to talk about. We have been in a gas rights agreement with DTE Energy since the mid-90s. And the current agreement that we're in with them, with either DTE Energy or their subsidiaries. So the agreement we're in right now does expire in just a little bit over 3 years, in January of 2026. So we're having conversations about extending the agreement in anticipation of that expiration date. Under the current conditions, the city is responsible for capital costs. We put in the wells and the piping, and the contractor is responsible for the power plant, the power generation, and the well field operations. Our revenues average about 250,000 to 300,000 every year. They're going to give a little bit more detail about that aspect of it. So with that, I'll introduce Steve Gabrielle and Chris Berkemer, and James Margaritas is also here.
Give me just a second and I will switch the screens.
Oh, sorry about that. Yeah.
No, it's okay. It just hit me just a little bit. Hold on.
Stop share at the top.
There it is. Thank you. That's what I was looking for.
We all have become experts in Zoom.
You would think I'd figure it out by now, but unfortunately. All right, let me do, okay,
Good.
you're up.
All right. My name is Steve Gabriel. Thanks for your time and good afternoon. Just a little bit, we'll share it through with James and Chris and myself, a little bit about the gas agreement, what we're thinking to bring some additional benefit to the city-county relationship. We actually are DPE and I'm with Energy Power Partners, just like the city and the county are in a partnership. We're in a partnership on this project, very similar. This project, we talk about renewable energy, congratulations to the commission here on renewable energy. So I'll take at least some background there. And this is what we're talking about here today too. There's an existing project we'll talk about. We're generating renewable electricity and there's new opportunities as the market has emerged over the last 20 some years that we've been here that we'll talk a little bit more about today. So we'll just introduce Chris. And
hello, Chris Berkemer. I'm with DTE Vantage.
Yep, sure.
DTE Energy is our parent company. It's a regulated utility based out of Southeast Michigan, 10,000 employees. I work for DTE Vantage. We build, own, and operate energy-related investments. Our renewable portfolio, we have 25 current projects with a couple more in pretty late-stage development. We do, like this project, we do landfill gas to electricity. We do landfill gas to renewable natural gas. We do dairy, and we also have waste wood to power as well. So that's a little bit about us. So Steve,
I should have just my slide up first, but if you don't mind going to the next one. So a little bit about Energy Power Partners, similar to DTE, we have 50 projects in 14 states from coast to coast. And we have a lot of biogas, a lot of landfill gas to energy projects similar to DTE. We operate electricity plants, renewable natural gas. We supply boiler gas to NASA and GM and so forth directly from landfills. We operate at 30 landfill sites. The other 20 are wind and solar. And some of our notable customers, if you go and buy some of your grandkids or kids, Crayola crayons, and you look on the back, it says solar provided, and it's by our company. Turkey Hill Ice Cream and others that we supply renewable energy to, but we've been in the business for a long time, similar to DTE. And again, we'll talk a little bit more about this.
Are you a major producer of energy for any of those companies, or is it kind of a minor?
Good question. What they do. So the Department of Justice, we're the largest provider of renewable energy to the Department of Justice. So
what percentage of their power can you provide?
We, at the site we're at, we provide almost 85% of what they need, of one of the prisons that we're located at, not the whole system across the country, but we're the largest provider under that one prison for the whole country, the largest provider. Some of these others, it could be anywhere, like Macy's, we provide anywhere from 10 to 20% on the site. Crayola, we're providing about 20 to 25%. It just depends. We're trying to increase on a particular site. It just depends on the site.
Okay, thanks. Sure.
so as Jan mentioned, we've been at this site for 24 years. Landfill currently pays for our plant capital and operating costs. Generating 25 million kilowatts per year, and that is like offsetting 19,500 tons per year of carbon. Then it lists some examples here. That's 0.1 billion cell phones, 3,800 cars. So it's significant. We're here to talk about the gas rates. The current gas rates and land license agreement expire January 26th. That agreement did anticipate future beneficial aspects that is already in the current contract. So the amendment wouldn't be too significant, but we would like to amend and extend that agreement. And I think we're going to talk a little bit about just what that project done in general now.
So I'm gonna do the landfill 101 basics. I've been in the landfill business for about 29 years. So for most people, you take your trash to the curb and that's where it ends, but that's not where it ends, obviously, right? So that trash is then taken to transfer stations and it's delivered to landfills where it's compacted and it's covered, and then you get the normal decomposition of gas that takes place. So then you're putting in a series of your extraction wells, whether it be vertical or horizontal wells. They're tied to a common manifold system. We pull a vacuum from the plant and we're taking any gas that's being produced is coming into a plant process, whether it be to go for power generation or to do natural gas cells. Whatever we need to do, the process is designed to do that. So currently at this landfill, I think there's about 105 gas extraction wells right now. And like we said in one of the other slides, we take care of the compliance side of that. The city county does the installations, but all the methane monitoring, Title V stuff and things of that nature is taken care of by our people on the ground. So just wanted to give you a quick overview of how landfills work in case you didn't know.
What's the BTU average of gas we got?
So we're pulling in about 52% methane, so it's about 510 BTU of gas. So, and right now I think currently we're at about 1,800. All right, it's about what we're taking. 1,800 SCFM is what we're bringing into the plant.
So a little bit of why we're here to talk about the amendment is if you look at it again, we have a landfill and there's a flare obviously on site. So you have to destroy the methane. Methane is not something we're going to release into the atmosphere. So at a minimum, if there's a flare on site to destroy the methane, but we're beneficially using it by putting it through a turbine, make electricity. We've been doing that for, again, 24 years. So if you kind of look at this, I kind of like red is current market. So you have electricity, it can go to a home or a business like we're doing today, or to Duke or whomever it goes to. We could have direct use of the gas through industrial or businesses that can use it, like a General Motors. But the emerging markets, even though there's some examples that have been around, in fact, we have some projects that have been around for a long time. The ones in green, like electric vehicles, not a lot of electric vehicles yet. We're seeing a lot more on the road. And then compressed natural gas vehicles. A lot of garbage trucks, a lot of larger trucks are going from diesel to compressed natural gas. And then pipeline quality gas. So a lot of not just compressed natural gas users, but utilities are requesting today green gas or renewable natural gas. So these are markets that we see are emerging, and why we want to take this project and we think there's additional benefit for the city and county to amending the contract. So we get to the next slide. What we have again is we have a one turbine plant. It's about 4,000 kilowatts. And right in front of us is really two choices we're trying to look at under this amendment. One is put in a processing plant where we take all the landfill gas and convert it into pipeline quality gas and sell it as green renewable gas, or really upgrade and extend and upgrade the plant, the electric plant that's there today, and power more like electric vehicles, which is obviously another emerging market. And that's really right in front of us. The EPA has some certain rules that they put out that we're looking at more closely, but either way, the financial benefit looks like about the same to the city under the city and the county. The existing agreement has a percentage revenue share. And as Jan was sharing before, it's about 250 to 300,000 today. We believe that will be multiplied by about 5 to 6 times under this new arrangement. And we don't want to wait until the end of this contract. We believe we can start that process today with your concurrence. That's why we were talking about that. But we're either again looking to, if we go down this path, this turbine plant, we go to compressed natural gas or green gas to the pipeline. They'll be used as pipeline gas or for vehicle fuel, compressed natural gas vehicles. Or if we expand it, we would have to upgrade this plant and expand it, and we would go into more of the electric vehicle market. But that's what we're looking to propose today.
What's the determining factor as to which direction you go?
The rules for the electric vehicles just literally they were just released 2 weeks ago. So we're reviewing those right now, but in parallel, we should know that within the next, I'd say 3 to 4 months, some clarity around that. And I think what we want to do is right now, we're looking at connecting it to a pipeline or upgrading the power plant. I'd say within the next 3 to 4 months, we should be very clear on which way to go. But again, looking at initially the economic benefit would be about the same for you.
I'm sorry, if I get this right, what you're saying is upgrading the power plant using the power generated for electric cars, and as opposed to putting it to the system. You mean no?
It would still continue to be connected to the utility, but we would find a pathway to a Tesla or General Motors. We would also encourage if there's electric charging on site too, we can participate with that or whatever made sense. That's another thing to do, but generally it'd be going out to the grid and then selling to an ultimate buyer. So some of the financial benefits, we are also proposing, we already operate the well field today. You do all the capital improvements. We're proposing to really jointly co-invest with that. So we would start paying in order to encourage more cooperation and also more focus on the well field. We would co-invest, so 50-50 on the well field, up to about $100,000 a year. We would start putting some money into the well field. Sorry, I think it's 200,000. Substantial increase in annual payments. Like I was saying, the overall value to the city and the county would go up about 5 to 6 times. So about 250,000 to somewhere between 1 and 1.5 million is what we're estimating. And then accelerated timing of payment. So we don't want to wait until January 2026. We think this is an opportunity that's available today. We'd like to take advantage of it. Operationally, we think there's an increased focus we can put on the well field and the tuning that we're already doing today. The idea is we don't want to flare any gas. We're going to beneficially use all of it. And we have already a task force working with us in DTE that would be looking at working with Jan and Gordon and so forth at the site and looking to increase the gas flows for our mutual benefit. And overall, we believe we could, so a gas collection system is never 100% efficient, but we believe with a renewed focus, we can increase the efficiency and capture more gas and increase the beneficial use and really support. There's a big strategic plan that's out there we have gone through. And I think the priority 10 is to support the green economy. And this will clearly be a nice support for that.
The flaring is because you're just not able to process it fast enough?
So if the plant goes down or it's just, typically that's why the plant just goes down for some reason, you still have to destroy that gas if there's some flare. Or if there's more gas than the plant can handle, it would be constantly flared.
Well, that's my point. So it's the idea is this next phase, we kind of increase that capacity so you don't run into that bottleneck.
Right. We do not want to flare the gas. That's correct. And we maybe put some redundancy in the system too.
So Steve, are you saying by this project, because you were saying potentially 4 to 5 times revenue generation, are we flaring that much gas? Are you expecting gas costs to increase so much more, which is going to drive revenue? I mean, how would we potentially get that much of an increase?
We would find different homes for the energy market on the other side of it. So selling it either to like a Tesla or a General Motors, someone who's going to find more value. But part of that would be we need to upgrade the plant on our end to do that. So we're going to make upgrades on our end, but really the ultimate is with us marketing it to other buyers on the other end.
Aren't you adding more wells? Is that
wells would be again, we want to increase more flow too. So that'd be there's a whole bunch of pieces to it, but one piece would be upgrade the plant, look at the well system, can we upgrade it, operate it more efficiently, and then who is ultimately buying it from the other end.
So the folks buying these other people, you're saying are willing to pay more?
Correct. Yeah, the federal government has new programs in place that didn't exist really until the last several years. In fact, electric vehicles very new, like I said, in the last couple of weeks.
So if they're willing to pay more, then that cost is going to get passed on to somebody driving that Tesla or somebody driving those other cars.
So true, but I mean that if you think of it today, even diesel costs a lot more than compressed natural gas when you buy it at the pump. So there's other ways. We're already paying a lot for diesel and gasoline. These are other ways, but there's also there's cost to everything. But I think the overall is the environmental benefit that we're gonna see from it.
Has someone got that to apples yet? To decide whether that cost on that back end is gonna be better than the diesel and gas we're paying for now? Has anyone done that?
I've seen a lot of studies which take into not just economics, but the environmental benefits. So if you have an electric vehicle, the emissions are zero. So there's then the question of the economics of an electric vehicle versus, and I've seen studies, there's a lot of studies to that, but there's a lot of ways to look at it. So does that make sense?
Another part of the cost is selling it back to the grid to our power company. They, they're pretty tight with it. Right. What you get, for what you're supplying or what they get.
Right. It's
not pretty regulated.
correct. It's regulated. Right. So we can find more open markets which are more valuable by doing it this way. The other part, obviously the question is about amending staying the agreement, but we also like to see specific relationship with Crayola and Turkey Hill. We value the education. As we saw, you have a lot of open positions, so do we. And I think the education of renewable energy and the benefit that we can see through this project, and us, we have educational centers we jointly do at various sites. We like to see something like that put together here, not just young, but engineering schools, whatever it may be, and show the value of this project and hopefully promote that we have more folks getting into the renewable energy field because of this project. As you take tours of your well-run landfill site and you come by, you'll see this renewable energy project also, and hopefully we can see some additional, again, educational benefits brought and education. I think that's all I had.
So this is just for your information. We don't have anything obviously on the agenda for you to approve, but for the next, we don't meet in January, but in February, between now and then, if you have any questions or if you have any other thoughts, let us know. But our attorney is working with their attorneys to, negotiate the renewal, the amendment terms and everything, all that. So if you have any other questions while he's here, or if anything pops up, over the next couple months, you can let me know, or Jan. So.
Thank you very much.
Right, thank you.
So the good news is we have about a 30-year supply of gas right now too. Not like we only gonna be able to use it for 5 years.
Yeah. I think it's important too. I want to just touch on that again, the educational piece. I mean, we've really got to get our youth excited about what we do in our industry, as well as, in renewable energy. So I think the education piece is, I would definitely want that in any amendment or renewal that we did, in terms of some kind of educational center that we can showcase and brag about what we're doing. So. Okay.
Are we going to have Turkey Hill ice cream there? I'm sure that's part of the negotiation.
You want to make sure that's okay.
Yeah.
Do that.
Pretty good ice cream.
So, moving on to our next speaker. This is the Day for Solid Waste. So, Jan, I'll let you kick this one off as well.
Okay, our Jeremy is on the line. He's with us virtually. Can you hear us, Jeremy?
Sure can. Can you hear me? Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
Great.
Jeremy, he's spoken to us before. He's a professional engineer and a consultant with O'Brien Environmental. He's consulted for Winston-Salem since the late 90s and led the solid waste management task force published in 2000. Mr. Griffin, you may remember that. He currently serves as the Director of Applied Research for the Solid Waste Association of North America, and in that role stays current on the trends in our industry, and that's what he's going to talk about today. He does have a separate presentation.
Yep. I got it up. Pull it up. Bouncing back and forth.
Right.
Thank you. That's it. Can't see.
They got the arrangements.
They did.
Well, thank you very much, Jan, and good afternoon, everybody. It's going to be hard to follow a presentation with turkey heel ice cream, so I don't have anything as nearly as appealing in that in my presentation, but I want to thank you for the opportunity to meet with you and present some trends in solid waste management that you will hopefully find interesting and informative. Actually, I was planning to attend the meeting in person today, as I was hoping it would involve a gift exchange, but apparently you're not doing that this month. So Jan informed me that wasn't the case. So I decided it'd be better to participate remotely. So, well, thank you very much. I guess we'll just go ahead and jump right in then. So I'd like to cover three areas with respect to trends in solid waste management, specifically, what are the trends in solid waste systems being used in North America and around the world? And then trends in solid waste discards, what's changing in the type of waste that's being delivered to our facilities. And then thirdly, and perhaps most briefly, what are some of the trends we're seeing in solid waste policies? I will say I'm not going to focus a lot on materials recycling because you all don't own your own MRF, but there are some trends there. There's been a lot of automation of recycling facilities. We're getting more robotics, much fewer labor and manual personnel. So that's a big trend. But today I'm going to mostly focus on processing and disposal. So the first point I'd like to make with respect to trends is that there's not been that much change in the way that we've been managing our solid waste in the United States. Basically, for many years, I've categorized our systems as landfill-based systems, as we relied on landfill disposal for the management of most of our waste. In contrast, for those that have been around for a while and remember my presentation from a number of years ago, European countries rely on thermal and biological treatment of waste to manage the majority of their wastes. And so their systems can be categorized as recovery-based systems, at least in my mind. And this kind of neat looking photo is of a 242,000 ton per day plant that was constructed in Krakow, Poland in 2016. So you may recall that the reason for the Europeans using processing more than disposal is that in 1999, the entire union, 28 countries in the European Union passed a landfill directive. And this required biodegradable waste to be treated before being disposed of in a landfill. When you think about it, for example, we treat our wastewater before discharging it, and the idea was the same. Let's treat the biodegradable waste before putting it into a landfill. This slide illustrates the impacts of the European Union landfill directive. And as you can see on the left is the US, and we are disposing of about 53% of our waste. And you compare that to the EU 28 countries, the next vertical bar, and they're disposing on average, the 28 countries are disposing of only 25% of their waste. And you can see the difference. They're recycling a lot more, 45% of recycling and composting versus 35% here in the US. And they're burning a lot more for a thermal treatment for energy recovery from waste. But I also think that what's interesting is these last 5 bars representing 5 European countries: Austria, Sweden, Belgium, Denmark, and Germany. I mean, it's pretty amazing. You can see Germany, they almost landfill zero waste. They recycle almost and compost almost 70% of their waste, and the rest they thermally treat in these waste energy plants. They produce steam for district heating systems, electricity, and they also even recover ash, aggregate from their ash. So really there's nothing left to dispose except for some little bit of fly ash. So you can see the difference it makes depending on the types of policies that we have in North America versus Europe. And I will say, since waste treatment in the US is not required, landfill disposal is the preferred method. And the reasons for this are very simple. As a nation, we have, number one, plenty of land in which to build our landfills. And number two, I don't want to say we're parsimonious, but landfill disposal costs are significantly less than the other waste treatment options. My guess is for Winston-Salem to have a waste energy plant, tipping fees on the order of $100 a ton might be expected compared to your current costs of around the $25 or $30 range. And just by the way, for your reference, also Europe has 455 waste energy plants. China has 300 now. They're growing like crazy. In the US, we have 74 plants, and we've only built 2 in the last 20 years. So again, we have a very different approach to waste processing than in other parts of the world. Thank you, Courtney. This chart shows that there's been not much of a trend to report in the way we manage our waste since the year 2000. Again, it's kind of interesting. You go all the way back to the 60s and you see the waste stream growing and the population grew, but generation rates grew too. But since 2000, we've pretty much been recycling and composting about 35% of the waste. 13% is combusted in waste energy plants, and over 50% has been landfilling. And that hasn't changed over 20 years. So again, not much of a trend to report there. Well, some of you may be old enough to remember the Resource Conservation and Recovery Act that was, or RCRA, that was passed in 1976. I still remember that time. And RCRA is the principal federal law in the United States governing disposal of solid waste and hazardous waste. And the major goals at the time of its passing were to reduce waste and to provide for conservation of resources. So this slide indicates what we've been able to accomplish since RCRA was enacted almost 40 years ago. And unfortunately, as you can see, we haven't done a great job in reducing the amount of waste that we generate. In 2000, we, as a nation, were generating 4.74 pounds per person per day. And that includes both the residential waste that we generate in our households and the waste generated in businesses that from which we purchase products and services. Now that's gone down a little to 4.53 pounds per person per day in 2017, but it hasn't moved much. And just for reference, Forsyth County, I think the rate is about 6.2 pounds per person per day. And the reason that's higher, there's probably a lot of more dry industry in Forsyth County than other places. So what has changed over that time is the role that waste recycling and composting has played. Now it's changed from less than 10% in 1980 to 35% today. But as you can see, that still leaves a lot of waste for disposal. So in summary, we are still a long way from becoming a zero waste society. You may have heard that term. Everybody seems to want to have a zero waste plan for their communities. But the reality is that we are not only a long way from that, but we're not even trending a great deal in that direction. So in summary, after 40 years of RCRA, we have significantly increased the amount of recycling and composting, but we're still landfilling, producing a lot of waste and landfilling most of it. So what has changed?
Jeremy, there's a question.
I'm so sorry. Yes.
I said a question. In your opinion, why are the recycling rates so low?
In the US?
The backside, the aluminum and the plastic recycling.
Yeah, those are really good questions. I was going to mention that, first of all, the aluminum recycling rate for aluminum beverage cans, beer and soda cans, the recycling rate's only 50% of those, but overall it's 16%. It's just really an enigma because aluminum is worth over $1,300 a ton if you can recover it. So it's just, I really wish I had a better answer. One of the main answers is we don't collect many of the aluminum products in our curbside recycling programs. So we ask our residents to put their cans and, but we don't collect foil, for example, generally, aluminum pots and pans. So we're missing a lot of the aluminum in the waste stream. And a lot of it's in foils, a lot of packaging now is multi-material packaging where there's a layer of aluminum, plastic and paper all together. So, but it's a really good question. At least in my mind, that's something that we need to work on. The same thing for plastics. Plastics is now about 13% of our waste stream. I mean, it's really grown to be a substantial part, and yet we're recycling less than 10%. The reason for that, in our curbside programs, we only focus on two types of plastics: the high density polyethylene, milk jugs, and then the PET soda bottles. So we don't target a lot of the other types of plastics, plastics number 3 through 7 that are ending up in our landfill. We don't target, film plastic. So we've got a big job to do there. And, we've tried our best, but I'm certainly hoping on some of the people educated in the previous presentation to come up with better answers.
Are economics a big part of that? Is it cheaper, that 1,300?
Yeah.
Is it cheaper than doing it the other way?
Well, yeah, again, for recycling a lot of these materials, you have to generally collect them. The rule of thumb is it has to be convenient for the resident. And again, you think of like multi-material packaging, it'd be really tough to pull the aluminum part of that out of that, unless you process the mixed waste. And again, when I talked about mixed waste processing, Europe has about 400 mixed, what they call mechanical biological treatment plants, where they do try to process the mixed waste and pull the metals out. And in waste energy plants, they pull a lot of those metals out from the ash. So they see thermal treatment as kind of getting rid of the other two layers of the package, and it allows you to recycle to collect the aluminum. So, but basically, it is a cost issue, and I think there's a lot of opportunity to do a better job. Really good question.
Hey, Jeremy, I've got a question for you as well. I would imagine that labor sorting cost is prohibitively expensive in a lot of the United States. So my understanding was we were shipping a lot of this back to China.
That's correct.
And I was hearing China was not taking there as much as before. So are we able to send the waste somewhere else where the labor costs are cheaper to sort it? What are we doing with it?
Well, again, a very good question. I didn't cover that because it really was related to the MRF idea, but about 2 years ago, China really stopped taking a lot of our recyclables. Because we were sending recyclables with a lot of contaminants in them, and China was getting tired of managing our garbage for us. So they just put an end to that a couple of years ago, and the prices that we were receiving in the US for our recyclables just dropped dramatically. We used to get over $100 per blended ton, and if they dropped to around $30. So it really hit our recycling programs hard. And some communities decided they weren't going to collect recyclables at the curb. They just didn't think it was worth the money. Since then, we've started to try to develop processing capacity here in the US. In terms of paper fiber, there are now companies that are processing our recyclables from our MRFs and cleaning them up so that China will take them. That's one example. But again, I think what we're going to start to see, hopefully, is the remanufacturing coming back to the United States. But as you mentioned before, we still have that labor cost issue that it's tough to compete with Southeast Asia. So the short answer to your question, most of it is not going to China now. Some of it's going to other Southeast Asian countries like Vietnam, et cetera. So it's in a flux now. See, even 2 years after China did what they did.
Jeremy, you're not gonna get recycling numbers up unless the people drop it off. I mean, doesn't it go back to the household, basically?
Yes. I'm sorry, what was the question? I couldn't quite hear.
Is a comment,
Yeah,
in terms of recycling rate, we're not gonna get the rates up unless the folks drop the material off, put it in.
in the bin.
Yeah.
That is
You
correct.
gotta make it convenient. I mean, we're not
That's right.
getting the public participating.
That's right. And, and again, the conundrum is typically about 20% of what's put in the bin nowadays on a national average is not, is called contamination. Even though people think it's recyclable, so they put it in the bin, like film, it really messes up the processing at MRFs. So we have restricted, we used to say, hey, if you think it's recyclable, put it in the bin. Now our mantra is, when in doubt, keep it out. So the public is totally confused now. We've added to that confusion. The other thing I think we're eventually going to have to address is all of the recyclables that are left that we're not even targeting in our curbside programs. We have to have a way to, ultimately, I think we're going to have to spend the money to process that waste, what we call the residual waste stream, and try to pull recyclables out of that as well. But that's going to cost money too. So, any other questions?
Keep going.
Thank you very much. Good questions. So, what has changed in the U.S. is that not the trend in landfill utilization, but there has been a significant change in the ownership and management of landfills in the U.S. over the last 30 years. As you can see, in 1990, we had over 6,000 landfills. Today, we have 1,540. Remaining capacity is about 18 years. And really what happened in the early 1990s, some of you may remember, that's when the Subtitle D landfill regulations passed, where now we were required to collect and treat leachate and line our landfills and make them protective of the environment. So when that change came in, a lot of local communities kind of got out of the business and decided that they weren't up to running those types of facilities. So essentially, as a nation, we went from using local publicly owned landfills to regional privately owned ones. And some of them are really remote. Just as an example, New York City sends its waste by rail down to South Carolina for some of its waste. And then I think it sends its waste by truck to Ohio. So when I say remote, these are pretty remote based on the waste generator. So today, about a third of the landfills are privately owned, but this third manages over 2/3 of our waste. And these facilities serve large and regional groups of communities. The publicly owned landfills, we've got about 1,000 of those, similar to Haynes and OSR, and they manage about 1/3 of our waste. So they're much smaller and serve much smaller areas. And they, since they're smaller, it's harder for them to compete because they don't have the economies of scale that these larger facilities do. So this is the time that I hope each of you reaches over to your colleague and pats them on the back, because I just want to point out the trend has been for landfill disposal for communities to close down the small public landfills and haul their waste to larger regional private ones. While this has been a popular trend, it does not allow the community to take advantage of the benefits of owning and operating in its own landfill. And these include the ability to guarantee future disposal capacity and pricing for its citizens and businesses, much the way you do in water and wastewater treatment, because of your stance and implementation of public landfills, you can offer industry guaranteed pricing and capacity. And if you used a large private landfill, you might not be able to offer that, depending on how long your contract would be. And so I think this is a really great benefit. It also benefits the local economy. You keep your waste disposal jobs, waste processing jobs in the local economy, and your dollars local. And finally, it really embraces community environmental stewardship in my mind, because the community that's generating the waste is responsibly managing it. And I just think that's admirable. So that's just a personal opinion. All righty. Now I'd like to switch topics and talk about changes in waste composition. This pie chart shows you what's being generated in our waste stream now. You see large amounts of paper, yard trimmings are still a big portion, food. Plastics was originally 2% about 40 years ago. Now it's over 13%. So a lot has changed. But what I'd really like to talk about is some of the new waste waste categories that you all have identified: solar panels, lithium-ion batteries, food waste, and PFAS. So one of the concerns expressed by the commissioners was the future disposal of solar panels. And as this slide indicates, we've got 23.3 million solar panels in North Carolina that are on utility solar farms. That number blew my mind. And as you can see, as these panels get decommissioned after about 20 to 25 years of use, they're going to have to be managed, either recycled or disposed. And you can see between 2030 and 2040, over close to 13.5 million panels will need to be managed just in that 10-year period. And that's not too far off. And nationally, the same trend. There's about 8 million metric tons scheduled to be produced by 2030, decommissioned and ready for disposal or recycling. That's going to grow 10 times by the year 2015. And here's the unfortunate thing. Recycling of solar panels is complex, it's labor intensive, and it's expensive. And as a result, less than 10% of the panels that we manage are recycled today. And from a policy perspective, this is astonishing to me, because we are investing billions of dollars in this type of renewable energy, but there's no federal requirement to recycle these panels at the end of their useful lives. So it's quite astonishing to me. We're just hopefully relying on the market to do it, but as of right now, it's just not cost effective. The cost to recycle a panel is probably 2.5 to 3 times the cost of what you gain in terms of revenue. So the other issue is that depending on the type of panel, it could be regulated as a hazardous waste. Some of these panels have lead in them to a certain degree, and so they would fail the hazardous waste test for lead leaching. And so if they have to be managed as hazardous waste, that's going to significantly add to the cost. So it's a real issue that you guys have identified, and it's one we need to keep our eye on, and hopefully the federal government will consider mandating the recycling of these panels. I think that's the only way that we can get this done. Another issue that was raised: lithium-ion batteries, recycling and safety issues. In the U.S., it's estimated there'll be about 88,000 tons of lithium-ion batteries in 2030. Believe it or not, the lithium-ion battery just started commercial production in the early 1990s. So it's only been about 30 years. Now they're found in over 400 types of products, just about everything. And so that's causing an increase in these types of batteries. And then that increase will be dwarfed when we start, really embracing electric vehicles as alternative vehicles as was discussed earlier. As with solar panels, there's no federal regulation to recycle lithium-ion batteries, and less than 5% are currently being recycled. And the reason for that is that recycling involves a high temperature melting and extraction, kind of like a large smelter that is used in mining. So it's a large scale, high temperature process. This photo is of $175 million. They're calling it a hub that's under construction in Rochester. That'll be the first large scale recycling hub that we have in the US. The other issue is the safety issue. We're seeing increasing fire hazards at our recycling facilities and landfills. We had a record number of fires in 2022. I think there were 268 fires that, and the year's not over yet, where lithium-ion batteries were suspected as the cause. And in Mecklenburg County, where I live, we had 5 small fires in 1 week at our facilities. So it is a significant problem. So a lot of people, sometimes people put them in with their recycling bins, and then they hit the concrete floor, and the packaging tears open, and they short out, and boom, it's a very hot fire, difficult to extinguish. Another trend is, I don't want to say it's a trend, but it's on the radar screen, is a growing emphasis on food waste diversion. In 2015, the EPA and the US Department of Agriculture established a goal to reduce food waste by 50% by 2030. So here we are about halfway there. I'm not sure that we're close to having that happen. And food waste is a significant part of the amount of waste we dispose. And they're concerned not only because of the fact that we're wasting food, but also food waste adds to the methane generation in our landfills. Now, you might think that's a good thing based on the last presentation, and it certainly is, but we're not capturing all of the methane from our landfills. And so they're concerned about the methane that's emitted by the food waste. And so what they want us to do is to collect it separately in curbside programs and bring it to an anaerobic digestion facility where we can collect all the methane. And as you can imagine, that's an expensive alternative. There's also a yuck factor. In San Francisco, for example, you cannot use plastic bags, nor can you in Seattle and Portland to put your food waste in. They advise that you put it in wrapped newspaper and freeze it until the day it's going to be collected. So there's a real yuck factor for residents. I might make the mistake of pulling it out of freezer and cooking it again, but anyway. So let's keep going. I'm sorry, the growing concern over PFAS, as you know, and Courtney, please tell me when I've got my less than 5 minutes.
Yeah, how many, I can't remember how many more slides you have, Jeremy. We just to keep us on track, we might want to.
Sure, okay.
Do it quickly.
Well, then if you want, I can, I'll just quickly summarize this. PFAS is a growing issue for landfills because we may need to pre-treat leachate because we know it contains PFAS. And also in August, the EPA proposed characterizing 2 types of PFAS as CERCLA. So that might mean that we might not be able to landfill those types of products, and also might add to our need to treat it. So I'll just move on from there. I know you guys have been briefed on the PFAS issue. Okay, quickly, 3 policies that you might be aware of: climate change impacts, sustainability, circular economy, extended producer responsibility. The climate change, landfills, even with our collecting and using the gas, they're responsible for 11% of global methane emissions. That'll increase to 70% by 2050. For the circular economy, the goal is to shift from our linear economy to circular approach. And finally, extended producer responsibility. This is happening in Europe and Canada, where they're asking the producers of these products to share in the cost and the management of their products at the end of their lives. Carpet would be an example of this. Okay. So here's the summary. The waste stream will continue to change and present new challenges and opportunities. I'm confident that as solid waste managers, we're up to the challenge. For the future, the US will continue to rely primarily on landfill-based systems. And then public landfill ownership gives communities control over future capacity and pricing. And again, I would just want to applaud you for having the courage to stick with the public option when everybody else seems to be going private. So thank you very much. I hope I haven't taken up too much of your time, but appreciate your attention.
Thanks, Jeremy.
Thank you, Jeremy.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Okay, next is our agenda. So, get into our agenda items.
I'm going to slide off now. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Okay, agenda items. First item is the approval of minutes. I'm sorry.
So again, our goal here is to, at the very end, vote by consent agenda. So we try to do that, because just to kind of speed things along. If there are any questions or issues, we try to hammer that out at the beginning, going through it, and then so we kind of.
Sharon, we also have opportunity to have a few questions about the financials.
Yes, at the end.
Okay, so first item is the meeting minutes from our October meeting. The second item, sorry, I went too fast. Second item is a consideration resolution authorizing execution of various agreements regarding proposed water and sanitary sewer improvements to be installed within various developments. There are 13 developments. The total estimated water cost is $1,453,800. And the estimated sewer cost is $3,805,440. So the developers are building the infrastructure and conveying it to the city for maintenance and ownership. Item 3 is a consideration of resolution authorizing settlement of an easement acquisition for the Fellers Creek outfall replacement project. The commission authorized easements and improvements on the property of 660 Teague Road related to the Fellers Creek outfall project. The original acquisition was appraised at $13,425, and that was around $2,700 for easements and $10,700 for a detached garage, improvements to a detached garage. The owner has obtained a quote from a contractor to replace the garage, and that's $29,000. So the owner has agreed to settle in the amount of $27,000. This would be a payment to the owners for an additional $13,575. Staff is supportive of this settlement.
So in a situation like this, is it just done on a case by case basis, or if you came back and said, "Oh, well, I got a quote from the contractor that says the garage is going to cost $1 million"?
Yeah, yeah. Absolutely.
Is there a dollar amount threshold?
Yeah.
Did it automatically get bid out, or?
Yes,
sort of,
and if Travis wants to add anything to this, but yes, we absolutely look to see what, sounds right, and if it's from a verified contractor and right. Yeah, they can't just bring any amount to us, right? Okay, item 4 is consideration of a resolution authorizing acquisition of easements by deed or condemnation, phase 2 of the Sprague neighborhood sewer rehabilitation project. So this area is in need of extensive sewer rehab based on a condition assessment. This is phase 2. Phase 1, we brought some easements back in February that the commission approved. So this is the second set of easements. And they're shown in the attachment in your book. And so this resolution authorizes the acquisition of easements depicted in the attachments in the amount of $48,925.
Let me this is just a curiosity question. As I look through this, their Square C builders had 0.12 square feet, and we gave them a token. And then the one below it was 0.15 square feet, and we gave them $1,300.
Travis, you want to?
Yeah, so whenever the claim is less than $100, if it's a $25 claim, they round up to 100 for the offer.
Well, I'm just wondering about the value. 0.12 square feet, 0.15 square feet. That doesn't seem like much at all, but
Yeah, that square footage does not look right on the, because I've never seen a square feet less than.
And they're neighbors too, so they'll talk. I got $1,300.
I've never seen a square feet in decimals, so we may have to revisit this.
Is it the square foot or the dollar value that you revisit?
Well, and could there be a chance that there's like a?
The dollar amount per square foot.
Right, I'm taking the square footage.
Yeah, right,
I've
right.
never seen a square feet in decimal.
The type in error.
Yeah, typo.
All right, so 5 is consideration of a resolution awarding a contract for the Upper Peters Creek Outfall Replacement Project Phase 1. So we originally solicited bids for this project, and we had no bids back in May, so we made the decision to split this into 2 separate phases. So the scope of Phase 1 includes replacing approximately 4,900 linear feet of pipe, manholes with larger pipe to address capacity issues on the Peters Creek sewer outfall. Bids were received October 6, 2022. Metro Industries was the lowest responsible bidder in the bid amount of $3,887,095. They did agree to the subcontracting goals established for this project of 5% for minority-owned businesses and 5% for woman-owned businesses. So it's recommended to award a contract to Metra in the amount of $3,887,095, and that $195,000 be available for contingency if needed.
Did we get any feedback from the folks on the first round as to why they didn't bid?
No, we don't. If we have to bid again, we don't typically go in and see why the contractors didn't. You saying submit the second time that we?
Yeah, I mean, sometimes we would, if it was one like this, contact a couple, if we knew the contract, call them and say, why didn't you bid on this? What, I got too much work right now. I can't, well, why did you even come? You know,
It depends on the situation though. If we are not receiving any bids, then we will reach out to see why they're not.
well, we didn't get any bids on it.
Yeah, and I don't know the answer to the question, but obviously we have 4 this second go around.
Do we know what the engineer's estimate was the first time? The first time?
Well, did not stay the same? Oh, you broke it up.
Oh yeah, we broke it up, so it would have been more. Marcus, do you know the engineer's estimate off the top of your head for the first go round?
I'm just curious how far we are off. If you split the project in half, and you're now 3-something million estimate for half of it. Was the original estimate $10 million or was it $2 million? If it was 2, then if we're gonna bid the second phase next year, it'll be another $1 million extra. And I'm wondering, would we be better off to bid the whole thing again and find out why we can't get somebody to actually give us a price? There's 2 more questions.
Well, that is a good question, and I know we have those numbers, but we just don't have them here in our head. But I still think the low bidder significantly less than the second low bidders. I still feel like we're getting a pretty good,
Well,
bid overall.
To Tom's point, I guess we've reached a decision that we could divide this project up in some way to have a phase 1 and phase 2. So it's the thought process when we did that there's not the sense of urgency to get the whole thing completed within a certain time frame, or that if we divide it up, that hopefully costs are going to drop by the time we put it out to bid again.
Yes, I think all that. Yeah, I mean, at this point in the market, we're just still. I mean, it's very volatile. So prices, hopefully, they'll go down. But
Well, I mean, that was a big difference, 3.9 million to 6.5 million between the high and low bidders.
oh, yeah,
He was just hoping nobody else would bid.
The original engineer's estimate was 6.3 million.
for the total.
Well, I mean, I see what we're doing. It says the scope of the work involves replacing approximately 4,900 linear feet of pipe and associated manholes. So I mean, is it a cost of materials? I don't know.
And I don't know that it was divided equally in half. I mean, it could have, I don't know the difference between the two.
Clearly, the price of materials are going up. If you look at some of these chemical bids.
Oh, yeah.
We're looking at 22, 27, 29% increase from year to year.
Well, I can't think that they're gonna continue to rise at that kind of
Price
rate.
of pipes going out the roof.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't get it. You can, it's expensive. So
Well, I mean, that may be the reason why they didn't bid.
Too many feet of pipe to.
Right. They wanted to commit, they didn't want to commit.
couldn't
to
get
that.
it. Yeah, didn't
I
beat it.
think there is a level of complexity in part of that plan. So the idea was to sort of go with the simple part of it first.
Yeah.
And then we're gonna pretty soon go,
Pray the next part.
we're gonna go pretty soon with that second phase, pretty soon. See what happens.
Are you gonna stay in Hanoi?
Sure.
Okay.
That's why he's gone. That's why he's
That's why he broke it.
He's like, let me get this figured out while I'm here and then I'll.
Trying to
talk
get
to
it done a while ago, I rolled back there and I said,
That's right.
what's your plan? And he said, I'm gonna travel. I said, well, you got about 4 weeks of your retirement taken care of. I said, we'll see you in about 2 months.
Okay. Okay, so then, item 6 is related to 5. This is a consideration of a resolution approving an engineering agreement for construction administration services for the Upper Peters Creek outfall replacement project phase 1. Again, the low bidder was Metro in the amount of around $3.8 million. Staff requested a scope and fee from Highfield Infrastructure Engineering to provide the construction administration services for phase 1. And we negotiated a fee of $401,200 for these services. Highfield also did the design for this project.
If I could kind of try to understand. Did Highfield, when they put this bid out, did they know that we were going with Metro and what their bid was? Or did they put the bid based on what they, projecting the work was? I mean, how did they, what's the time frame on this? As I look at like the percentage, because obviously if they came up with 400,000 and then we ended up going with the 6.5 million, that percentage is going to be a lot lower.
So they gave us, we paid them at the very beginning a design fee. And that was for the whole project. Then we split it up. They did bid documents for one phase of the project. So the amount that they gave us, this fee for the construction administration is just for phase 1.
Would it have been before the bid was taken the pipe? Would you have gotten that price from them? I think.
Well, they originally gave us a price to do the entire work. And I went back and said, give us your fee just for phase 1, because I didn't want to bring a fee to the commission now for the entire work when we haven't awarded a contract for the entire work. So we don't know what's going to happen with phase 2. We think we'll proceed on, but typically it's 20%.
Yeah, are we getting these bids both separate, or does the Highfield know what our bid is for the overall project when they come up with what they say it'll cost to have construction administration?
This one, we got this, I don't, sometimes it's before, sometimes it's after. This one, I can say it's probably, they gave us this price after the contract, after the bid was received, because I went back and asked them to just give us the fee for this one phase instead of including the entire, both phase 1 and phase 2. That answers your question?
Yeah, I mean, do you see what I'm kind of saying? I mean, if they're doing it based on a certain percentage and it's not actually based on what they think the work is going to be, then we're always, go ahead.
Well, I was gonna say, maybe the question is, what was the original estimate from Highfield for the whole job?
What was it, 900?
788.
No, that's design. What was the CA services for all? I think that they originally came with us at 900,000, if I'm not mistaken.
It was like twice that.
Yeah, it was about.
I don't think they calculated based on a percentage. It's a scope of work.
Based on what?
On a percentage. They look at the linear footage and the amount of time that it's gonna take to do a certain linear footage. And since this one is just a little bit over half, I think, that's how they calculated the fee. They didn't just, calculate it straight.
Okay, but you're saying the next phase is gonna be more complicated.
Yes,
Does that mean the fee's gonna be higher?
it could be. We just don't know at this point.
Based on the scope of work.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. The next item, item 7 is consideration of a resolution awarding a contract to CITI for software configuration and installation of a closed circuit television and access control system at utilities field operations. CITI has been selected as our integration and programming services vendor for water and wastewater facilities. In February of this year, the commission awarded a contract to CITI for instrumentation, software configuration, and programming system services, closed circuit television and access control upgrades for the R.W. Nelson Water Treatment Plant. And we now need the similar type of services at utilities field operation offices. So CITI provided a price of $136,615. Which includes CCTV hardware, access control hardware, electrical installation, and system programming services at what we call UFO, utilities field operations. Any questions on that one? Okay. The next 3 items, I guess, are bills. You want the bill presented?
Yeah. Would you want to throw the graph on?
Yep.
So before I go into my items, Ricky's team prepared this. It shows basically the running average throughout time of our chemical costs per year. It's been hovering right around 2.5 million. On the right-hand side, under fiscal year 22-23, the very left-hand bar, I don't even know what color to call that, but it's kind of ugly. Next, at any rate, that is what we've spent to date. That's what we've spent current time. The next bar over is what we budgeted, and then the red bar is what we project we will spend in chemicals throughout the fiscal year. So this is just simply to demonstrate the kind of escalation. $1.5 million in 1 year. Yeah. So some chemicals we've seen.
That's more than 50%.
That's correct. Some of these chemicals we've seen almost 100+ % increase in that.
Where are they being sourced from?
China. Well, no, actually.
I know.
Yeah, I know. They're domestically produced, all these chemicals, at least on the water side. Now, the wastewater, I don't believe that those chemicals are coming in on the domestic side for caustic and at least for that one. But all of ours are domestically produced.
And I will say, we don't have a graph that shows you our financials, but our total expenditures are still tracking below our budget. So, we obviously have we're gonna have a huge increase in chemical costs, but we're monitoring all of our expenditures because we know that we're gonna be over in some places.
83 vacancies.
Exactly. And I was going to say, and unfortunately, those vacancies will help cover some of that, but obviously that's not a good thing either. But
I mean, this is not, if you're telling me most of this is sourced from the US, this is not gonna be a unique problem to just us. It's got to be across the entire industry.
It is.
I mean, what are we running out of these? Is it a scarcity issue? Is it a production issue? Is it a mining issue? What, do you have any idea why it's going on?
Yeah, there's a lot of filters on the.
That's what they'd say.
And a lot of times they're related. For instance,
hypochlorite is a caustic based product. So anytime you see an increase in the chloralkali markets, you're gonna see an increase in the hypochlorite markets. In terms of our zinc orthophosphate, that is in competition with, the fertilizer markets. And also that resources is limited. It was actually limited before the price escalation started, so.
So we're starting to have a scarcity.
Yeah, there's limited
So
resources.
it's not like the EPA has come out with new requirements on this that's driving costs.
Yeah, it's simply resource driven. And then you've got the other escalations in the transportation costs. The labor markets are,
Yeah, I know that, but not at this rate. Transportation and labor are not rising at this.
Yeah, but a farmer friend of mine told me that last year he paid like $200 a ton for ammonia for corn. Paid $660 a ton this year. 200 to 660.
Are there other options?
Yeah, don't plant crops. I mean, I don't have.
unfortunately not, because all these products have to be produced to standard.
Yeah. That's a very good intro to what we got to talk about, with that understanding. I mean, you're right, there's not really much option.
And be prepared during the budget season to see that increase.
And look closely at the budget. Cut more.
We have seen steep increases in the past and markets have stabilized and the prices come down.
Yeah.
Now, the future, we don't know what it holds, but we have seen somewhat of this before and prices have stabilized and returned somewhat.
How long did that take?
In that case, it was about a year and a half.
Okay, so when you do the budget, I'm gonna hold.
Okay, so with that backdrop, each of these items are due to continued volatility in the chemical market. Each one of these, the vendor has asked for a price increase above what was allowed by the contract, which forced us into putting it back out to bid. So item number 8 is consideration of a resolution awarding a term contract for sodium hypochlorite at the water and wastewater treatment plants. Bids were received on November 18th, 2022, to be delivered as needed for water and wastewater treatment. Univar was the low bidder at an estimated 415 to supply an estimated 415,000 gallons of sodium hypochlorite semi-annually for an estimated cost of $838,300. And then if the contract is extended for an additional 6-month period, the estimated expenditure over 1.5 years would be approximately $2,514,900. Okay. Item number 9 is the same, essentially the same backstory. It's consideration of a resolution awarding a term contract for 50% caustic soda at the water treatment plants. There were 3 bids received. Ultron was the low bidder for an estimated 450 dry tons of 50% caustic, semi-annually renewable with allowable increases not to exceed the producer price index. If awarded, it would be approximately $431,100. And if the contract were extended over 1.5 years, it would be approximately $1,293,000. $293,000. Any questions on that? So item 10 is consideration of a resolution awarding a term contract for 25% caustic soda at the wastewater treatment plants. Bids were received on November 7th, 2022. There were 3 bids. Staff is awarding contract to Univar for an estimated 45 dry tons of 25% caustic soda semi-annual. Same renewable terms based on the PPI.
If awarded, the estimated annual contract would be about $59,715. And if it's extended, estimated expenditure over 1.5 years will be approximately $179,000.
So, Bill, when we took that tour, at our last meeting, and you talked about some of the computer technology that we have and how frequently we can do labs to see potentially how much chemical we need to put into the water to treat it. Is that going to help us with some of these chemical costs by being able to better direct it?
No, but where it helps and saves you money is those computer programs look at the flow that's being treated and it automatically doses that flow. Whereas if you have a person doing that, those fine changes in flows are not going to be captured. So you'll use more chemicals over time. So the SCADA system does over time save us money, especially in chemicals, because, you know, for something like caustic, for instance, our operators in the regulations at some point say you've got to stay within a range. So it will allow those operators to very finely operate within a smaller band than what the regs say. So we can actually give them a narrower band. And that in time will save, that over time is where you save the money, especially with SCADA.
Right. So the cost benefit on that, based on these increasing cost of chemicals, should make that an even better investment.
Absolutely.
I don't know what the payback on that is, return ROI on it, but
yeah, it could be calculated, but it would be an estimate. But it does save over time, especially those programming features that automatically adjust, you know, based on that band.
And do we have that at all the plants?
Yeah, that's how the base operating protocol is set up, even water and wastewater. It looks at that flow and it automatically paces off of that flow. Just do it by Excellent.
Okay. Okay, Ricky, you want to get the last one?
All right. Item number 11 is consideration of resolution amending the water and sewerage system policy resolutions regarding scheduled fees. Winston-Salem County Utilities completed a cost of service study in the spring of 2022 to evaluate the current fees being assessed for various services. The fee types with proposed changes are as follows: service initiation fee, water meters, furnishing installation fee, capacity analysis and network trace fee, and utility plan review fee. The Planning and Policy Committee of the Winston-Salem County Utility Commission met October 10th, 2022, and is supportive of proposed fee schedule changes. The proposed revisions are indicated in attachment A, and staff recommends approval of the proposed fee changes effective July 1st, 2023.
Very good. Questions regarding that? Being the last item on the agenda, I guess, are there any other questions on any other particular items? If not, I will entertain a motion.
But let me just add, Tom, all these policy changes, fees and everything.
I read every one.
You're good with all of
Absolutely.
The whole committee.
the whole.
Some of those fees have probably not changed since he still.
I think we need to increase the fees right today. I don't think we need to wait till next year.
Well, if
We
you're,
can't give you a Christmas bonus if we don't get it done. Hey?
if you're good with that, then I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Moved and seconded by Commissioner Griffin. Roll call.
Commissioner Brown,
Approve.
Commissioner Eustace,
Approve.
Commissioner Griffin,
Yes.
Commissioner Hines,
Yes.
Commissioner Jernigan,
Yes.
Commissioner Long,
Yes.
Commissioner McRae,
Yes.
Commissioner Parker,
Agreed.
Commissioner Wilson,
Yes.
and Commissioner Edgar, you haven't joined us.
He's not doing it. All right, very good. He's going to approve. That going forward, we do have a couple items that we can, I think, early emailed, some balance sheet information.
So I know somebody had sent out the water, sewer, and solid waste balance sheets, and I think there was a restricted fund update, and Mr. Long, you had some questions.
Well, a couple questions. Under the liabilities there, you see the net pension liability, both this one and sanitation, they've come way down, which is a good thing. But I'm curious as to the reason, whether there's some deficit funding that was called back up, or all these vacancies affecting this.
That is a number that comes from the state of North Carolina retirement system, and it varies every year, based on a couple of factors. One is timing of payment, you know, how often people are retiring. The biggest impact is usually the investment rate of return, and the plan gets valuated on a calendar year. So at the last valuation, investments were substantially up. So that would have changed the city's liability.
That was the article in the newspaper about the state pension funds that kind of mirrored what you're talking about. I understand what that meant for this now.
Yeah, so the rates at the date of the actuarial valuation were very good. Investment returns were very good. So that reduced the city's liability. Now, the next valuation, we all expect, well, currently the rates are not good. And so we're expecting that to swing the other way at the next valuation.
Second question I've got, on this restricted cash fund, we've got outside county reserve. I assume that's the East Bend, the Kings, the
Kernersville.
Kernersville
No,
inside.
outside
The
county.
first offender of all.
Kernersville's inside, it's not
Yeah,
outside.
it's the outside county. So that's our wholesale customer. So it's Yadkin County, it's Stokesdale, it's Greensboro, it's Davidson.
So are they accruing reserves too?
No, so there's an economic, there was a amendment to the original agreement between the city and county that says we can charge outside customers more in their rate, and then half of that difference goes into what we call an economic development fund that the city council and the county commissioners approve on how to use that.
This is not available for their use then.
Those customers, no, it is just, yeah.
Okay.
All right, but we just have 4 counties outside of Forsyth that we apply for.
Yeah, and I know that's one of the topics I bring up maybe at our next meeting would be to discuss our wholesale customers. So, so for sewer, King, Davy, Ricky maybe can help me out too. Let me think. Davidson.
Yadkin, Davidson, Guilford, Stokes.
And then water is Yadkin, Stokesdale, Greensboro. And then Stokes County, actually water and sewer.
Greensboro will not admit that actually happens.
Well, and Greensboro is not a regular, we don't provide to them on a regular basis. They, once a year, they ask for us to send them water so they can do a clean out of their system. They treat their water differently than we do. So they have to do a burnout, I guess is what they call it, right?
Yeah, they changed their disinfection chemistry and they can't mix the water.
Any other questions?
Yeah, if I look at June 30th, 21 under restricted cash, we're at 37.5 million, or 37.5 million, and then it jumps up to 94 million. Is that something to do with these bond proceeds of 43 million? Where are we getting such a big?
Yes, but bond proceeds are included, so that would account for most of the difference. The rest of the difference is timing on reimbursement in FY 21 from the state, the bond, the loans where we borrowed the money, for instance, for Nielsen. So at June 30, 2021, we were not caught up on our reimbursements the way that we are at June 30, 2022. So there was a negative position because we were awaiting a reimbursement in 2021, whereas that was not the case in 22.
Is that basically we upfront on those state loans, we upfront the money, we pay it, and then we request reimbursement from the state to pay back.
And that's why it's restricted.
That it nets with the restricted cash because it when there is a negative, we're taking that out of the capital reserve fund on the restricted side. So we're basically temporarily borrowing from that. And so when we get the money back in, it goes back there.
Any other questions?
I do have one last quick question, a bigger picture question. 84 vacancies, you said, almost 20%. At what point does it start impacting service? And then the second question is, if it's not impacting service, you really need to.
Yeah, you know, so I would say it already is impacting service. I can tell you that staff, most of our vacancies are, field operations. And that's been the case probably in history of the utility is where if we've had vacancies, that's where it's at. So, and I can tell you that staff is getting burnt out and they're having to work really hard and we're trying, you know, trying to give them as much support as we can.
I want them to quit, that's right.
Yeah, but we're having to really prioritize. We can't be as reactive as we can't be as proactive as we'd like to be. It's a lot, it's reactive. That's Kenny's group. I don't know, Kenny, if you want to add to that, because I know he works really hard in his staff, as well as all of our departments and then our divisions. And then of course on the solid waste side, they have vacancies as well that impacts. So it's more overtime. It's more.
Are we having to raise rates? Are we having to raise salaries?
We have raised salaries on our equipment operators. So that is something that we looked at the beginning of the year to try to address that.
I think for the new people or the people you're trying to hire, fill that 84 vacancies, are we seeing some salary inflation?
We have increased that starting pay.
Yeah, I mean, I think to answer that question, we already saw, I mean, this time last year, we had Old Salisbury Road landfill closed for however many months.
Yeah, what was it for?
Almost 4 months.
Yeah, so I mean, it has already been impacting service delivery. And I know our HR department is working very hard to try to come up with solutions. This is not just a utilities problem. 20% of utilities tracks with, we're about 20% vacancy citywide. So utilities is not in the character with kind of the overall city number.
I think it's affecting all industries.
It is.
Oh, it is.
100%.
So Aaron, since we're kind of operating under the city pay structure, what is the analysis on the cost of overtime versus raising those hourly rates?
So it's a multifaceted point, I think, because to some degree it gets to what Courtney was speaking to. When you've already got less people and then you're saying work more overtime, you're burning them out at a higher clip. And so at some point, we do have concerns about burnout for those employees. So that's why it's in all our best interest, I think, to try to find some positions, some bodies to put in those positions so we can get back to a more fuller staffing level. I think at this time last year, we were probably 65, 70-ish. We made a little bit of ground up and now we've lost ground back again to the 83 number you saw today. PD is having the same issue and trying to offer overtime to officers, and there's just not an interest in doing it because folks are already burning the candle at both ends. So that it's a tough one to solve.
Well, it's like you're saying, at some point, it just maybe there's just no bodies out there. So I'm saying at some point, instead of spending the overtime, offer the salary so that maybe somebody else is more interested in coming joining the team, but it may not be bodies.
I don't know. I mean, how do we compare to the surrounding municipalities
in terms of vacancies?
Well, in terms of vacancies and salaries.
Yeah, so I don't know the answers on both of those. My gut tells me, at least on the vacancy side, we're probably in a comparable position to where other folks are at, just kind of anecdotally from what I think we've heard from our peers. I think we probably are in need of a compensation study across the board, not just in utilities, but citywide. To the one question about can you just pay folks more to get them in the door? Well, you sure can, but then you upset everybody that's already been here. When the guy off the street making $5,000 or $10,000 more than the guy or gal that's been doing that same job for 10 years. And so that's the compression issue is what gets you on that. And if you don't think about it holistically and comprehensively, then you run the risk of running off people that have been here doing the job.
It's a tough situation.
It is a tough situation. And I will say, we ask for our customers to be patient with us because our service level, we're doing everything we can, but it obviously is being impacted.
So does that mean we're having to hire more contractors? I mean, one of the things we talked about was like the fire hydrants. So we're having, and I mean, that's another, you hire a contractor, obviously is going to be at a higher rate than if you hire the employee. Are you seeing
We're looking at all options. We are not closing any doors right here.
Yeah, and that's the same across all levels of public works right now. If there's something on paper, it looks like, well, if you got the money, let's just pay somebody else to do it. Well, that's great. But then somebody on the city side has got to manage that work, make sure that it's done. And so there are savings, but it's a little more complex than what it looks like, because if the folks you've got are already overloaded to say, well, you're managing this, it's another log on the fire. I think where some of those bear the greatest amount of efficiency are kind of, things are easy to manage, things are easy to operate, things like that. It's something that we're certainly exploring on the city side, but there are certainly challenges with that as well.
Well, and you probably were gonna get at some point, what happened in the fine we got. But I've got to think part of that may have been we are having staffing challenges and
Through us.
that things fall through the cracks.
Absolutely. I think exactly, but I will tell you, and I had some slides, but I know we're running short on time, but I will tell you that we've made some significant improvements. We had around 3,000 red lines backlog in June of this year. So even before the incident, the overflow in August, and we're down to about 600 and something now. We hope to be finished close to the end of the year with our backlog of red lines. So we did hire a GIS technician that we were dedicated to that work. So we're able to do that, and that helped. But it's vacancies and trying to shift your priorities. What is our highest priority? And then at this point where we're at today, we have to set those priorities, and we have to start at the top and kind of work our way down. I mean, that's just where kind of how we're trying to manage. And we have not received a fine yet. I know it seemed like we did. Kind of the article, the article. It sounded like we did, but we have not been fined yet.
So the $25,000 in the newspaper
That's the max fine.
That's the max fine. That's the
max fine.
That's the standard language that comes in all those letters. Yeah. So we actually have not received the fine.
I wish I could talk.
That's right.
Well, I will tell you that-
I mean, I boil every time I read one of these articles. I'm sorry. But I do boil a little bit because
We know you're out there watching us right now.
Well, I think
You get your best try.
I do want to make sure we're trying to work on telling our story and letting the public know how hard we are working, because this board has been really supportive of our efforts. And so I had this, not time to share it, maybe the next meeting, but do we put out more press news releases? We want to put a dedicated page on our website just to say, this is what we're doing. I know that there's bad things do happen, and that was an unfortunate event. But we learn from it and we grow from it, and we're still doing a lot of work to prevent more of those from happening. So.
And that's the message I guess we could end on, is that mention to Courtney that, when you read something like that, obviously that's information, but to have more about what we are doing on this side and what we continue to do so that we narrow down those possibilities that those things happening again is kind of where we're at. It's like I say, anything can happen. It's just how do you manage it so that it doesn't happen again. So we want to continue to try to send that message out to everybody in the public. So
that's right. That's right.
And you could maybe do a highlight on the newest member of our commission, and one of the reasons why we brought him on.
That's right. I told him when we talked, I mentioned that I said 99% of what we do has to do with how we relate to the public. So how they perceive. So.
Right.
I'd be to help in any way I can, but I'm not sure my face will do it.
Very good. Well, we appreciate everybody's patience. I know we're a little over today, but I think we had a great discussion. If there's nothing more that needs to come before the commission today, I certainly will entertain a motion.
Move.
Second. Moved and second by, really, Commissioner Griffin. Those in favor, roll call. That's right.
Commissioner Brown,
Yes.
Commissioner Eustache. Yes. Commissioner Griffin,
Yes.
Commissioner Hines.
Yes.
Commissioner Jernigan,
Yes.
Commissioner Long.
Yes.
Commissioner McCray,
Yes.
Commissioner Parker,
Yes.
Commissioner Wilson.
Yes.
Yeah.
Happy Christmas to everybody.
Merry Christmas. Happy New Year. Happy.
I know not.